Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Theta Ministries and Podcast. I'm your host, Wes, and today's episode is going to be um, a little bit winged, uh, short winged and long winged at the same time. I don't even know how we did that. Um, so I couldn't think of an episode for today. Been rushing at my episodes kind of recently. But anyway, I thought of an idea for an episode, and I'm a big guy who likes watching debates. Um, a lot of Christian media online. That's been my main thing that I binged now. And anyway, so long story short, some of you who actually watch debates on YouTube keep up with the drama about how this stuff sort of plays out. And anyway, for those of you who have listened to the earlier, well, if you're on my YouTube now, um, go to my bio in YouTube if you're on your phone or even if you're on your monitor or computer, whatever you're on, and you can go to my profile and you can see where my podcast is. You can go to my link and listen to the episodes, and you'll hear my testimony quite a bit. I might expand and expound upon that in a later episode. But I was an atheist for about a decade, and then became a believer in 2021, and I do apologetics almost full time now. So, um, I'm doing a lot of debate watching, a lot of my own studies, in philosophy and history and theology, and so anyway. So, being that I came out of a background of debate as an atheist, uh, my my favorite debater when I was an atheist was Matt Dillahunty. Um, and I used to almost worship him. And I thought him and Aaron Raw would have been a dynamic duo if they uh, did debates together, essentially. Anyway, Matt Dillahunty was my hero as an atheist. Richard Dawkins, I never even really watched Richard Dawkins. I think Richard Dawkins was a cop out because he wouldn't actually debate real apologists from the Christian faith. Even when I was an atheist, I was like, at least debate someone like William Lane Craig or Frank Turek, somebody up there who actually has experience, not just a bishop who all he knows is just Bible verses. That's not gonna do anything. When I was an atheist, I thought Matt was the hero of atheism, secular humanism, and I would watch his radio show, and people would call in, and at the end of every time I watched his episodes with him or somebody else that was on the show with them, I would be like, "Yeah, you can't say anything," yada yada yada. That's a whole thing. Um, and it's ironic how I'm coming here in 2023, 2 years after I became a believer, and I've watched a lot of Dillahunty after um, I became a believer, and it really is like the scales came off of my eyes when I became a believer. Matt's worldview. Uh, and actually, Andrew's gonna. This debate's pretty much. I'm skipping around here. The debate that I'm watching is Matt's most recent debate, and he hasn't debated since this debate, as far as I know. I may have to do more research to confirm that for this video and podcast episode if you're watching on, like I said, YouTube or Spotify. Um, but it was against it was Matt Dillahunty and Andrew Wilson, an Eastern Orthodox guy, and being that I've leaned more precept recently because of people like Jay Dyer and James White. Um, I I love the the apologetic methodology of presuppositionalism over evidentialism all day. Evidentialism is what got me to the faith, but presuppositionalism is more powerful than any evidentialist methodology you may use for apologetics. So, um, anyway, this debate topic between these two, between Andrew Wilson, the Eastern Orthodox fellow, and the atheist Matt Dillahunty, like we were just discussing, uh, is the topic is will secular humanism beat Christianity? And Matt, I already skipped over Matt's opening statement. I'm gonna steal man Matt's opening statement and make sure I just because the reason why I'm only showing Andrew's opening statement, you can go and watch the video. I'll show the title. Actually, let me just show you guys the title to get to see that. You can watch the entire debate, and I encourage you guys actually. I encourage you to watch the entire. Well, the debate only lasted an hour because Matt walked out pretty much. Um, but anyway, we'll get into that in a few. Um, but anyway, uh, I forgot where I was going with that. Yeah, go watch the full video. Make sure you do your homework before you make any final assessments here on that. Um, And yeah, basically the topic the topic says, will secular humanism beat Christianity? And the topic really meant was, which one is better for the world? Matt's opening statement was first, because he was the positive, as in, yes, secular humanism will triumph morally over Christianity and so forth. And Andrew Wilson comes up next in this next 10 minutes, but Matt Dillahunty, his opening statement was just pretty much to sum it up. Secular humanism, and he quoted the Secular Humanist Manifesto, and why well-being should be held to, which that's not even clearly defined by the manifesto itself. And then talks about human flourishing, like it's sort of like the Sam Harris-esque language, saying slogans such as well-being and flourishing, as if one, you can even define that thing to begin with as an atheist, or even have the reason to believe that we ought to be doing that. And social contract theories fails because it's ultimately subjective anyway. So anyway, we'll keep on moving. But this is and oh yeah, and Matt did add a couple comments just saying, oh, the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, the conservative guy, he's like, he's homophobic and yada yada yada. He just started yapping on it. It was just a bunch of atheist cope. And then later on, Andrew gave his opening statement, and here's why I think, as apologists, if you are watching this and you same kind of stuff that I do, or are interested in thinking about getting into it, we need to, and I know we should be doing apologetics with gentleness and respect, but sometimes you have to take out the theological sword and epistemological sword and slice people wide open. Because if you don't, they get to just keep on yapping without any refutation, and usually, it's ironic. I'm not going to spoil too much about what happens here, but something happened, and Matt got upset, which is strange for me to even be saying now, because I've never seen him walk out of a debate in my life. For the years and years that I had been watching him as an atheist, when I was an atheist, he was always confident. He was like, I got this. And his main objection would just be, I'm not convinced and I don't know. That's his ultimate objection every time he's asked a question. Which is weird, because that means you know that you don't know, but then you can not know that you... His epistemology is so weird. And he pretty much just grants himself unjustifiable concepts such as the mind and well-being and the definition of well-being. He just kind of grants himself that stuff, but anyway, keep on moving. Yeah, guess we'll start watching the video and reacting to it. This is like I said, watch the entire video from the start. I'm just gonna play Andrew Wilson's opening statement. Yeah, get into it.
You're welcome. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Andrew Wilson. I am the host of the one and only Crucible, the fastest growing debate channel on the internet. James, just in case you didn't know. Appreciate that very much. Appreciate everybody being here. All of you are way too stodgy in this room. Very low energy. Just wanted to let all of you know that.
I forgot to mention, the majority of that room are there for Matt Dillahunty. So the majority of that entire room, because this is an in-person debate, modern day debate. Shout out to them for all the great work they're doing for the faith and stuff. That entire room, because this was an in-person debate conference, and they're having debate after debate after debate, and they have audiences of people that got tickets. Maybe they got tickets to go see it, or maybe they got to see it for free. I don't know. But the majority of that entire crowd is all secular humanists and atheists who are there for Matt Dillahunty. So yeah, that's why he started off the opening statement with, "You guys all look pretty stodgy right now." Yeah, we're gonna keep on moving. No, I thought that was funny. So.
Ladies and gentlemen of all pronouns.
Oh, one more thing. Before we keep on going, I, as a Protestant, can appreciate when an Orthodox fellow actually steps up to the plate and destroys secular humanism. So, thank you for Andrew. Thank you for Andrew Wilson.
The Z's, the Zers, the hims, and hers. I would like to thank you for tuning in today for this exciting in-person conference on modern day debate. My name is Andrew Wilson. There's a few ways this debate could go. The topic is Christian ethics versus secular humanism, which has a better foundation. The funny thing is, I already won that topic because, as Matt explained to Jay Dyer, he has no justification under the skeptical belief structure to give an accounting for any meta-ethical presupposition he may have. He just kind of grants himself stuff. He grants himself logic, he grants himself reason, he grants himself an entire worldview, even though he's using an unjustified starting position for it. So,
I just realized I was muted. I was talking for no reason. This is something that we need to start doing as apologists for the faith alike. Whether you're Protestant, Catholic, or Orthodox, or Coptic, or Syrian, whatever you may be. This is what we need to do against atheists. Destroy their starting position. Because if you grant them stuff, then they can sort of just say, well, see, I've already been granted this stuff. Now I'm not convinced because I already have these things like laws of logic that are immaterial, and so forth. And so that's why Andrew was sort of stating at the beginning there of a statement that Matt grants himself stuff unjustifiably and just says, nuh-uh. Wish I could put the meme up. When I start getting more editing, and I start feeling like doing more editing in my videos, I'll start putting memes up here. Doing it the Jay Dyer way. I'm just throwing in memes for Matt Dillahunty. No, I'm kidding. That's a meme from their crowd as well. I picked up from them. Anyway, so yeah, take away their starting point and they have no ground to stand on. And that's why they have to keep on presupposing and granting themselves stuff that's not justified even by their own worldview. Like, for example, the mind, that's not justified in atheism because it's just materialism. And like Matt said, he's not convinced that immaterialism is true, and therefore has to say, I don't know, or I'm not convinced. But how do you know you have a mind to not be convinced with or convinced by? It's just a completely circular and unjustifiable system that people like Matt hold to, which is what pulled me out of atheism to begin with. Pretty much all of atheism's starting points are unjustified. You have to steal from the Christian capita to say, well, see, now I'm justified in believing in the things like the laws of logic, which are consistent throughout all time and places, objective morality, and so forth. And you just can't really just grant yourself that kind of stuff because you feel like it. If you want to be in a position, you have to be consistent. And anyway, I appreciate Andrew for pointing that out because, we could have immediately gone to the like most evidentialist leaning apologists, like I used to be myself, which they've done a good lot for the faith, so we can love them for what they do. But why would we focus on evidence? Because we know there's evidence for the Christian faith, but to throw it in someone who's not willing to accept the evidence because and they don't want to, you can throw as much evidence as you want, but it doesn't matter. I mean, it's great for the audience, but also, when you're debating somebody, this is something I've learned from doing hours and hours of debates with both Catholics and Muslims and atheists myself. You can throw as much evidence at them as you want to, but if they don't want to believe it, then they'll just keep on saying, nuh-uh, nuh-uh. So, find their presuppositions and their starting points and why they're unjustified to start with those to begin with. So, yeah, we'll keep on moving.
I'm not honestly all that interested in doing the God not real dough debate because one, it's boring, and two, it's also really boring. It goes like this. I don't see enough evidence and remain unconvinced there's a God. Then I say, but you use a theistic worldview of justification like there is a God to grant yourself logic and everything else. So instead of that, I'm just going to grant Matt's entire worldview. 2/3 or more of this entire planet are all operating inside of a shared delusion that they were created by a sky daddy who loves him some slavery and murderousness. He thinks it's funny to kind of cosmically with people. That's his deal, kind of his whole thing. That's Matt's worldview. So now Matt's right, and the question becomes, should we let them to continue to believe in this nonsensical Stone Age madness?
Which is how Matt frames the Christian faith. He likes to ad hom and straw man, and a lot of it is really just ad hom, and so I glad he said, okay, let's just grant his this is where, because everyone tries to convince Matt with the evidence that the Christian faith is true, which is a good way to try to convince somebody that the Christian faith is true. But obviously Matt, if you've watched him before, he doesn't want it to be true. Romans 1 is quite literally being fulfilled with Matt Dillahunty. They suppress the truth and unrighteousness, and it's sad, but that's what's happening. But this is usually in debates with Matt, people will be like, see, the evidence for God's here, for the evidence for God's here, the evidence for God's here. And I've seen that happen over and over again. And Matt just goes, I'm not convinced. And he waves the hand at them, at both those who are watching and the person who's debating with them. They'll go, oh, I'm not convinced. I don't believe it. Well, I just don't care. And I don't care what your God thinks. Something like that, along the lines of that. But this is an interesting turn because I've never heard anyone argue like this from this debate topic. It's totally new to the way I've heard someone argue with an atheist, and this gets really good because I might start adopting this foundation. I mean, I can adopt that foundation, but instead of adopting evidentialism and saying, look at all the evidence, now believe it, someone who doesn't want to believe it, they have to not only steal from the Christian worldview to justify unbelief in the idea of belief itself, but they have to also steal. What else could I say? That well, there's a lot, like I said, lots of logic that goes with the idea of believing in a certain object or being whatever it may be. He can just say I don't know, and I'm not convinced. But this is a good way. Andrew Wilson, I think, really killed it here with how he did this debate because I've never seen anyone take this approach before he's about to take. So pay attention to this. Pay attention to this.
Or do we stop them from engaging in it? My contention is, even if God isn't real at all, that people acting as though he is still superior to whatever nonsensical, egalitarian worldview Matt can come up with.
Have you ever heard an apologist argue like that before? Because remember, the debate topic was not, and he talked about that in the beginning of his opening statement. The debate was not God is real or he is not. The debate topic, drop this thing. The debate topic was not does God exist or are morals or is morality objective. He said what is better for the world, which is a few presuppositions loaded within that question. Secular humanism versus Christianity, which is better for the world? Better hasn't even been defined, which can't even technically be defined in secular humanism, which I've heard Matt try to define before, and I've read the book that Sam Harris wrote a little bit. And he's trying to define. Atheists ultimately just have to say it's subjective. Although they'll make slogans like well-being and flourishing, but never can ultimately define what those terms actually mean in any objective or real sense. So, yeah, he said even if God does not exist, my view would still work out better. And then, yeah, so I was surprised when I first watched this debate a month ago when it came out. And I was shocked. I was like, well, that's a way to argue. I mean, it works because let's just not even discuss the ontology of God. We can just talk about what is actually good in terms of the ethics and moral virtues of Christianity over secular humanism. And it's something that you rarely ever see with Christian apologists online. And sadly, most of them have been Catholic or Protestant, and I'm sad about that. Although I've seen mainly a lot of the presuppositional stuff come from Orthodox guys like Andrew Wilson or Jay Dyer, which I appreciate them for doing that stuff. They got me into presuppositional apologetics, yeah. So anyway, this is an interesting way to approach the subject, but this is where it gets interesting. Just keep watching.
See, Matt also just acts as though the things he believes are true. He believes, and therefore acts as though logic is real, math is real. Everything is real based on his presuppositional belief that they are real. You see, human flourishing, the cornerstone.
And this is what I mean. This is exactly what I mean. When you're debating somebody, look at their presuppositions and why they're holding those presuppositions. Again, Matt's not even technically, ontologically allowed to believe in something that's immaterial like thinking or thoughts or morality at all. So why would he advocate for something being better for the world when, first of all, better implies an objective term for a standard that you progress to, which makes something better or worse, depending on how well you do to adhere to that standard. Not only that, but you also don't have a mind to comprehend that standard. So Matt's not justified in either of those categories philosophically. So this is a really good. Um, he's pretty much backed Matt into a corner with this because the only thing Matt can say is, "I'm not convinced," and he goes, "Well, I think it's better because yada yada yada." And I've heard a lot of arguments for secular humanism. They don't work. They'll be like, it generally goes down to human being well-being or flourishing, but then again, what does that mean? And it becomes subjective. So it's not objective at all. And I'll just quote Andrew here. I hate to spoil this part because I really love when he says this. Andrew Wilson says, secular humanism can be pretty much whatever the hell you want it to be, which is true because you just get to redefine well-being and flourishing however you want to. Um, so, yeah, keep on moving.
Known of Matt's ideology and that of secular humanism is totally meaningless. Flourishing by whose metric? From my perspective, for instance, attempting to lie to people who claim men can be women isn't human flourishing. From Matt's perspective, it is. Why? Why should the collective of humanity lie and say men can get pregnant? Why should they say that men can have periods? Things which are categorically and obviously false. That preserving homosexuality in society is good for human flourishing, even though they are reproductive dead ends. And that Western society and egalitarianism is superior to those evil theist society, even though the Western nations can't even reproduce their own populations, but instead have to replace their population with foreigners from those theist nations that can reproduce. Let's start with a basic societal question recently asked of the West, who has now embraced a scientific and non-theistic approach to governing. Super basic question every kindergartner knows. If you don't believe me, go watch Kindergarten Cop. The question posed to the Western nation is, can a man be a woman? All right? To the question of if a man can be a woman, they say the answer is yes. And the way we will decree they can be a woman is by simply saying that woman now means male.
I hate to say this to all my if you're watching this as one of my former secular friends, which we haven't probably talked in a while if that's the case. And you're probably going to be calling me a transphobic bigot now, whenever YouTube's going to treat me after saying that. Gonna Matt Walsh me after that one. What is a woman? So, you see, yeah, ultimately, man and woman is a biblical category and presupposition that both man and woman were made in the image of God. And so ultimately, you can't appeal to gender categories without appealing to scripture, because that is the foundation of all reality in human relationships, is man and women being made in God's image. Therefore, giving them value, which gives you the ought standard of why you should treat that thing with value because it was created by God for a certain purpose, treating it as if it was created by that divine being. And categorically, there's a distinction in scripture between those two, male and female. Matthew 19, Genesis 1 and 2, so forth. So, and obviously Andrew, I think, hit it on the head here with the whole transgender ideology. But this is where it gets even crazier, because I didn't know this until I had watched this debate. But apparently, I think the reason why Matt actually got up and left this debate, because he actually left this debate after the opening statement, which is weird. Because he's never backed down from a debate, which I respect him for, but he's dating somebody that's transgender. So, biologically male, who's actually a woman. So, it's technically a homosexual relationship. And so, being that that's a close hitting close to home, I guess we'll phrase it that way, hitting close to home subject that Andrew brought up. The reason why that was fair game for the debate was because Matt's entire opening statement, and you can, like I said, go listen to the debate, the first 10 minutes of Matt's thing. Matt's entire opening statement was all about saying that Christians were homophobic and yada yada yada, stuff like that. So when he brought up sexual ethics, that became fair game as a topic for the entire debate. And so it's funny how later you'll see after this, Matt doesn't like when he has his own medicine given to him for a taste of it. He doesn't like when someone actually flips the script on him and says, "Well, you brought this topic. We're going to talk about this topic then." And so that's why he starts delving into sexual ethics and why secular humanism pretty much just is, let's all just, like he says it, let's all just have sex and have fun, bro. that's pretty much what secular humanism is. So, uh, anyway, well, we'll keep on moving.
Problem solved. Thank you, secular humanists. Thank you so much. Nope, not kidding. Why, you ask, would people be this over the top stupid? Well, it's simple. The good is the good, man. We have to do what's good for human society and human flourishing. And if you don't call these deranged lunatics something they obviously aren't, they might self-terminate. So in order to avoid that, we need to make everybody on planet Earth lie to them. This is human flourish. Just redefine shit, pretend it's true. How laughably absurd this worldview is. Matt will often say, I remain...
And can I also add, and he's not wrong, well-being and flourishing in the aughts are never really defined by any solid ground, ever, in secular humanism. It's we ought to do something for humanity's well-being. But where do both of those things come from? Because in secular humanism, usually it stems from atheism, which is materialism, and in materialism, none of those things matter anyway. And oughts don't exist because it's all material. Oughts are an immaterial philosophical concept. So oughts in objective morality don't exist in secular humanism. So you can define well-being or flourishing as whatever you want it to be. It's just, well, I mean, the well-being for me is, like he said, saying you're a woman when you're a man, or doing the opposite. And we should be sympathetic to those who do suffer with gender dysphoria and that those who need mental help, and we should be very loving to those people. But to coddle people and encourage them to take upon things that they truly are not, I think is evil. And YouTube will probably take me down for saying that. But I think it's evil to lie to people in that manner. And out of love, we should be telling the truth, not lying. Loving people is not hiding from them whenever you know they need to hear the truth. Loving people is telling them the truth, regardless of how they feel. And so, yeah, I think Andrew is killing it right now, and this is coming from a Protestant. I'm tired of just seeing people throwing evidences out for Christian faith. I'm like, great, yay, amen, great. But ultimately, to atheism and atheists and agnostics, they don't care about the evidence. They don't want it to be true. Find their presuppositions and then rip them apart from the core. You can't just throw things from the external and say, look at this, look at that. No, rip apart the insides of them. Pull up the root of their ignorance. Pull up the root of their false presuppositions that they can even grant themselves, which they're not justified in granting themselves in the first place. Yeah, keep on moving.
Unconvinced. Well, Matt, I'm also going to use your standard. I need for you to 100% convince me beyond a shadow of a doubt that males can have babies. What's the answer?
I'm sorry. Also, I had to forgot that was even in the debate. Anyway, yeah. If you've watched Matt Dillahunty, and I did for years, like I was when I was an atheist, Matt's main objection to anything is I'm not convinced. And to that, I would retort, I don't care what convinces you, I care about what's true and what's ontologically real. Matt doesn't care about ontology, he cares about epistemology, and solely epistemology, not ontology. The difference between those two is epistemology is why do I know what I know, and ontology is the record of what is actually real. And epistemology and ontology can mix, but Matt thinks that essentially your epistemology discredits any ontological truth. Because you think something is true doesn't mean it is true. But we have to look at the evidence and why presuppositions of metaethical claims such as laws of logic and so forth, those are transcendent, immaterial, objective claims that are not material in nature. But anyway, that is the image of God in Matt Dillahunty, to just say, I don't want it to be true. The same thing with all the atheism and agnostics. Ad hominem fills the gap where there is argumentation. And I think I've coined that phrase now, and I love it. Since I became a believer, I'm not even joking. I think I copyrighted this. I trademarked this quote. Ad hominem and insults fill the gap where there is no argumentation for your position. I think it's demonstrated all throughout atheist apologetics. It's just calling Christianity stupid, it's dumb, it's mysticism, yada yada yada. I think if you actually make an argument, that's something you can actually engage with. But just saying you're stupid and homophobic and whatever the hell it may be at that point, um, you know, it's so frustrating to try to deal with people who don't want to hear the truth. But anyway, keep on moving.
Are going to be, no, Andrew, you big stupid. Males can't have babies. Men can have babies. Because we just defined man to include females, dummy. Well, Matt, I remain unconvinced. I'd like Matt to convince me that if you are a male and you are having sex with another male, which would not be allowed in my version of a secular humanist worldview, how is it that you're not just basically having sex with a guy with a wig on? I really want to know the answer to that question. Not just me, but all rational people who aren't lunatics also want to know why "it's ma'am" isn't a complete and total crock of garbage. Because I remain unconvinced that it isn't a total lie, and that these people don't just pervert the language to include their own perversions and then add human flourishing at the end. Matt has...
Which, yeah, he's not wrong. And also, can someone give me a solid definition that all atheism agrees on? What human flourishing and well-being actually means at its root? The definition of what those terms actually mean. You can't. You can't as an atheist because ultimately it's subjective to each person. That's why I'm saying every atheist agrees on it. They can't. But anyway, yeah. Just begs the question as to what flourishing and well-being actually means.
Said he wouldn't make a law stopping 9-year-olds from having sex with each other. Not kidding. Now, I know this is going to sound a little bit totalitarian, but I would in fact create laws that made it a crime for a 9-year-old to have sex with their 9-year-old. I would hold the parents criminally liable for allowing this to happen in my evil authoritarian society, where I don't even let 9-year-olds have sex or the parents go straight to jail for negligence. Now, I think that's better for human flourishing. I think maybe parents would be far less likely to let their 9-year-olds do that if they went to jail. Stupid me. Next, I would in my authoritarian society decree that all simulated sex acts in public were criminal offenses and would make sure that all people went to prison for the crime of indecency, which doesn't assist with human flourishing, and I'd like to know why I'm wrong. Secular humanism can basically be whatever the hell you want it to be. It doesn't really need the principle of freedom or the starting axiom of freedom and peace in order to postulate whatever it wants. It's sloganeering. They're slogans. They don't mean anything. Okay? Why do 9-year-olds need...
Also, can I just say, as a former atheist, atheism is mainly just slogans. Notice how atheism turns to sky fairy, sky daddy, sky wizard, invisible Bible fairy, stuff like that. It's all just slogans and ad hominem, with no real argumentation against us. So yeah. Yep. Yep-a-roni.
To be able to have sex in order to advance humanity. Why do we need to lie about a person's sex in order to advance humanity? Why are these things necessary for human flourishing? Why are decency laws bad? Why would Christian ethics stop flourishing when the theist mandate is to reproduce and the secular mandate is let's just all have sex and have fun, bro?
Yeah.
That sounds way worse.
That was the part I was talking about earlier. Yeah, that... Anyway, yeah, the theist mandate is reproduction, as stated in Genesis 1. I have to think about it from memory. Be fruitful and multiply, which I think is Genesis 1:29, if I'm not mistaken. I may have to cross-examine myself on that later, try to figure out what passage in Genesis. No, it might have been Genesis 1:29, yeah. But yeah, the theist mandate is to reproduce and multiply and flourish, but we can actually define that metric by the standard of reproduction and keeping those people healthy, as defined by Scripture. Atheism is, like Andrew said, let's all just have sex and have fun, bro. And ultimately, if you have people of the same sex having sex with each other, you can't reproduce. So how would you even have humans to flourish to begin with if that would be the mandate to have couples who cannot technically sexually reproduce? You can say, "Oh, we'll do insemination." Well, I'm like, well, insemination requires the opposite sex to actually inseminate the woman to be able to reproduce. So that's still heterosexual, as intended in God's creation. So, man, YouTube is gonna tear me apart for this. So Spotify. Maybe, if YouTube takes me down, at least I still have my Spotify podcast. Go listen to that, by the way. You have lots of content to go listen to. A lot.
For human flourishing. In fact, I would say not reproducing is the worst possible thing for human flourishing, because if there's no humans, how do you flourish? So I guess, in essence, step 1, I remain unconvinced. Step 2, I need to be convinced, so I am no longer unconvinced. And step 3, but God not real dough doesn't matter here. I've already granted it to still demonstrate just how stupid this ideology actually is. With that, I'll yield my time, and I'm happy to get into it.
Hey, James, I just sent you a message.
All right. We are going to kick it into an open discussion, so 50 minutes, and let's kick it.
No, I don't think so. I'm not going to sit here and dignify the preparation that I went through and what people were here for.
You're so indignant.
Keep interrupting me.
I am.
Okay.
You're so indignant.
Would the moderator like to step in so that I can finish what I'm saying?
Please, Matt. Please. How dare someone have an opposing worldview?
I'm not going to sit here and dignify what was supposed to be a debate about Christianity versus secular humanism, which one's better for the world.
Yes.
With someone who clearly showed up with an agenda that has nothing to do with that.
So, and like I said, the opening statement is Matt literally just talking about sex ethics. That was his entire opening statement, was saying people who are Christian are not heterophobic, homophobic and transphobic and bigoted and all that stuff. And people in the Senate and Roe v. Wade, all that stuff. He's like, it's all hateful and the topic of sexuality, once you bring it up, becomes fair game in a debate, Matt. I've only been debating people for 2 years now on atheism and theism. And when you bring up a topic, it becomes fair game for both of you. You in the debate. That's why the debate is supposed to happen. Both people come together and talk about the topic that one of them brings up and discuss it. That's how it works. So, yeah. But anyway, we'll keep on watching what happened.
Someone who refers to trans people as deranged lunatics who will self-terminate if you dare to question them.
How am I wrong, Matt?
Someone who...
How was he wrong? See, this is what happens when you can't defend your position. And this is probably the best I've ever seen a Christian debater actually go up against atheism. And that's including Matt Dillahunty. Matt got back into his own corner and can't defend it. He can't. And that's why the thing is, this is open discussion time. Matt has the opportunity, the entire 60-minute discussion, though, entire hour-long discussion, it's free speech between both of the debaters. They can both talk to each other. It's not cross-examination where it's like question, answer. It's open discussion. Just have a conversation about the topic at hand, which is secular humanism versus Christianity. Well, which one would be better for the world? But Matt has the opportunity to answer Andrew, because Andrew's actually, it seems like Andrew's trying to actually prod and say, let's start talking about it then, instead of just complaining about it. Talk about it. Let's debate it. The debate's here for a reason. They set up this debate for a reason. I mean, you had to schedule this whole thing in any way. But yeah, this is a whole cop-out.
Misrepresents a quote from a debate where I said I wouldn't make a law about 9-year-olds having sex being legal with respect to the 9-year-olds, not that I was in any way in favor of it and that I was actually opposed to it, which I addressed during that debate. But moreover, this is not remote.
Regardless, I've watched a lot of Matt's debates, probably a good 50, 60 of them plus. And I haven't seen that debate yet, so I'd have to actually watch that one to see what he was talking about. So I will grant maybe Matt was right about that. Yeah, maybe then I would say that was a cheap shot by Andrew, maybe taking that out of context. That was rough. But the rest of this, it sounds like it's about to be ad hominem. But we'll grant him that point, that maybe Andrew took that out of context. I don't know. I haven't watched the debate, so I have to watch it to confirm it. But if you have, put it in the comments and tell me exactly what happened. Maybe give me one of those long paragraphs you see in a theology video, along those big Christian YouTube channels of debates going on in the comment section. Maybe start one of those debates in my comment section. That would be funny. But yeah, keep on finishing this up.
An honest interaction on the front of whether or not secular humanism is valuable. Because this, when he presented his position here, has nothing to do with secular humanism. From the get-go, it's all about me. Matt thinks, Matt thinks, Matt thinks. I'm giving what Matt thinks, what Matt thinks, what Matt thinks, what Matt thinks.
Matt's position.
I came in with the secular humanist manifesto. I came in with positions that aren't that aren't merely my positions.
Oh, well, as long as multiple people hold the position, it
This
makes it
guy's
valid.
not serious, and I'm leaving. James, if you want a refund, you
Well,
let me know.
good day, sir. And I'll cover your refund, Mr.
Cool.
Matt.
He just said he'd cover my
I
refund.
would cover his refund.
No. Nope. Nope. No, I'm not going to dignify a debate with someone who walked in to trash talk people and be smug.
Did Matt just say Andrew was smug? This has to be ironic. In some way, shape, or form. Matt Dillahunty calling somebody else smug. The man who was the face of smug atheism. Smug agnosticism. Unhumble. I mean, I love watching people like Alex O'Connor. I think he's one of the most humble atheists I've ever seen. And I think he might be genuinely in a search for God right now. But that's a whole different side issue. Matt is the most smug, and my heart hurts for him. Genuinely. My heart hurts for Matt because I've been there. I was an angry atheist like that before. I hated talking about theism. I thought the Bible was stupid. I thought it was just a man-made trash old book, and it's not divinely inspired, and yada yada yada. Just a bunch of atheist slogans I'd learned from people like that, and it disappoints me, and it makes me sad for Matt because not only do I see the image of God crying out in him to scream he needs help, but it out of love. This was disappointing even for atheists. I mean, I as a former atheist, I would have been disappointed watching this debate. Imagine I was still an atheist today, this would have been devastating for me. Which this was one of the biggest arguments for me to come out of atheism in 2021, early 2021. It's towards the beginning of 2021 when I came out of atheism. But yeah, neither be that here nor there. This would have been disappointing for me if I still was an atheist today, and I would have had to search more into this and find more arguments for more advancedly, I can't speak English right now. More advanced subjective morality. And try to find arguments around what Andrew said. Because as an atheist, I might have been like on the same page as Matt here. I would have said, "Oh, Andrew Wilson here is just being a smug old prick," and probably what I would have said. And being that I've been on the theist side for 2 years, on the Christian side for 2 years, I can really see the image of God, the hatred of God, the suppression of the truth. Romans 1, Psalm 14, the hatred for God is evident. Because notice how atheism's best arguments is I don't know, not it's not true. And if that's atheism's best arguments, I think atheism is pretty bankrupt and foundationless when it comes to their apologetics. And that's why the whole I'm not convinced is the strongest argument for atheism. But it doesn't solve anything. That's just an epistemological claim, not an ontological claim. It might be about your mind state of being, where like, I'm not convinced or I don't believe this, but that has nothing to do with whether God exists actually or not. So that's why we're talking about the evidence and why the foundation of even epistemology itself in atheism is bankrupt. But anyway, so Matt walked out, and it was satisfying to see that after years of being an atheist until a couple of years ago. And the day did come where I'm starting to see atheism get crushed, and it needed to be. The day we're living in, people are getting more and more wild. I made an episode about, I think it was on my Spotify. You guys can go check it out. But it was on the whole Hamas-Israel situation. And there was a TikTok trend where people were actually trying to defend Osama bin Laden. Some of the people I had known as secular humanists and liberals when I was a liberal, secular humanist, atheist. It was disappointing to see people were actually supporting bin Laden and what happened during 9/11. And I'm like, you You call that thing good? The slaughtering of 3,000 people by flying planes into buildings in New York City, and think that that's doing something good. And of course, it's all big neo-Marxist ideology. You know, the all of reality is just about the oppressor and the oppressed, and then you got to create more categories to fill in more oppressed people, and that's why you have 9 million letters in the alphabet army: LGBTQIAGIHIJKLMNOP, whatever. You know, at that point, it just becomes an endless string of creating ways to get away from God, and which is, I think, the pride flag is actually a slap in God's face. But you have to sit in God's lap to slap his face, as Frank Turk likes to say, because you do. The pride, the thing that's concerning about that whole thing as well, this is just a side note, the pride flag has 6 colors of it on the rainbow. The original rainbow during Genesis chapter 6 or 7, yeah, Genesis 6, was the rainbow had 7 colors. 7 means God's completed number. That's God's number. 7 means the Sabbath, the work is finished. The pride flag has 6 colors on it from the rainbow, called the pride flag. Now, pride is not only the sin by which Lucifer himself fell from heaven, which then he became the serpent to corrupt Adam and Eve. The entire fall of humankind. Pride was quite literally the fall of humankind. But also the number 6, which is in the book of Revelation noted as Satan's number itself. So, yeah, I think anything anti-Christian is satanic in its own form, one way or another. Same thing with Mormonism. I've talked about that quite a bit. Anyway, the Islam thing. I've done some stuff on the Israel-Hamas situation, and I had to stop doing the series because I got too emotional over it, and I got angry, and I just had to take a break from it. And I was like, I need to start controlling myself on that because I'm gonna. It makes me angry to see that happen. An unjustified killing of those citizens. And so, anyway, I'm going off of too many tangents. Matt walked out of a debate he got cornered into a corner with, and Matt had the time to refute Andrew Wilson. He had the time to sit there for that open hour discussion. And he backed out. And he walked off. The very big Matt Dillahunty, the big atheist YouTuber, and the one he looked up to for so many years, and he walked out of a debate. I need this has to be a devastating blow to atheism. This makes anyone who's on the fence right now. This definitely would if you looked into this debate. This has to destroy the foundation of your epistemology. So I think we should all should pray for Matt. As much as we joke around about his foundation and ad hominem him and stuff like that, I do pray for his salvation. I do pray for him to come to know the knowledge of the truth. That is Jesus Christ, Yahweh incarnate. And I pray that he has peace with God. I see his hatred for God because I used to be there. And your heart, when you become a believer, when you have the Holy Spirit indwell you, it is quite literally like the world is a different color. After you become a believer, everything, you start to see things for what it is. You don't feel blind anymore. The tinted colored glasses come off of your eyes and everything becomes so much brighter. And everything starts to become exposed by that brightness. Like Jesus is in John chapter 3, where they don't want the light to come to them, for the light exposes their dark deeds. And that's exactly what I think has happened with how I've experienced life after I became a believer. Was everything becomes so much more clear. And not that I know everything. A lot about how this world operates is against God. It's trying to destroy the image of God in man. It's trying to fundamentally undercut the authority of the scripture themselves. That's why you get false religions as well. Giving credence to the Bible, then saying, well, actually, this text is better than the Bible, but we hold to the Bible as somewhat authoritative, and it's just a cult. But anyway, before I get off too much on a tangent on secular humanism, this was satisfying to watch, but also really sad to watch. I hope Matt really does some soul searching after this debate. Because he clearly doesn't seem okay. This is weird. Even when I was an atheist, he would seem so confident. And after this debate, I haven't seen him debate at all. It's been a month. He used to debate every single week. It's been a month since he's done anything. So, I really pray he does some soul searching and really analyzes his own foundation for his worldview. Other than I just don't know. I'd say take the agnosticism and use that as a driver to search for the truth, not just complacently sit there and say, I don't know and I don't want to know. And that is what drove me to find Christ, was the I don't know and I want to know. And that is something we should encourage Matt and people just like him in. We can make fun of atheism in all we want, and I love making fun of atheism because how stupid its own foundation is. As a former atheist myself, but at the end of the day, those are people who are made in the image of God. We should still reach out to them in love, reach out to them in humility, and take on Philippians 2 as the embodiment of our being. In humility, serve others. Just like Christ took upon humility, took upon the form of a servant, and obeyed to the point of death on the cross. So, that will be the episode today. And I will talk to you guys later. And I will see you guys again on Wednesday. I'll probably have an episode up on Philippians 2. That'll probably be what the episode's about. And we'll see where it goes. So, all right, well, I love you all. And hope to see you guys again on Wednesday. Peace out. You know what I always say. Godspeed.